Hey everyone, Mike with Mike Walton IT Services here, and bringing you a video that's going to kind of jumpstart some other videos I want to be posting. And this video is simply how to set up and install CentOS in a Hyper-V environment. So I'm already here at my Hyper-V server, and I want to just go ahead and I'm going to do a new virtual machine. Now we're going to make this pretty simple, and I'm just going to call this CentOS preview. Make it nice and simple, and we'll keep that the same. This is going to be a generation 1 VM if you're using Hyper-V 2012 R2, because this is not going to be a guest with 2012 or 2012 R2, so it's got to be a generation 1 VM. And we're just going to give it, let's give it 1 gig of RAM, and we'll go ahead and we're going to connect it out to our public. And that's way too big of a hard drive, so let's just give it 50 gig. That should be more than enough for what we need. And we're going to install the operating system later and finish. Okay, so now we have created our CentOS preview VM down here that you can see. So what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and attach a CD to it, or an ISO image in our case. So I'm going to go ahead and go to DVD and image file, and we're just going to go ahead and browse. Look at that, I'm already there. And we're going to install in this instance CentOS 7.0. So we're just going to attach that ISO, click OK, and then we'll right click and start this guy. And now you can see he's starting is succeeded, and we can now open up the preview down here. And we want to install CentOS. We don't care about the preview. And we're going to let this run through. You're going to get a couple of interesting messages that may say calibration failed, like this one. Don't worry about them. They're pretty normal. And now we're at a screen right now for installing CentOS. Now I want to go ahead and apologize that my VM screen is going to look a little smaller just because of the resolution that I'm encoding this at. But we're going to go ahead and start installing our CentOS through this GUI interface. So let's get rid of some of these. We can get rid of the toolbar, and we'll go full screen mode. That might help out a little bit. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and choose English. So once that's done, we're going to come down here and click Continue. And now you can see everything that has a exclamation point we need to take care of. The software installation source and the software selection took care of itself. It figured itself out. But now what we need to do is we need to give it a software destination. And you can see that the begin installation here is going to be grayed out until we complete these. So we're going to go, I want to go ahead and complete these, and we don't really need to do anything other than make sure this is selected. And it's selected by default. So if I click that, you can see it's now not selected, selected, not selected, selected. And that's all we need to do. If this disk was, say used in some other fashion, like if it has also a Windows installation on it, we would need to be careful about that, because the way we're set currently is it's going to destroy the disk. But we want it to do that. So we're going to go ahead and select this disk, and we're going to have it automatically configure the partition for us. And then we're going to go up here to the top left. These continue and done buttons kind of jump around here a little bit, and we're going to click done. And now you can see that. One additional thing that we want to go ahead and do is we want to go ahead and set up our network. And the reason we want to do this is because in this CentOS minimal installation, which is my preferred method because it installs barely anything, the network and host name are a little more confusing to get set if we don't set them in this installation screen. So let's go ahead and configure these, and we're going to have one Ethernet adapter, and we're going to go ahead and turn that guy on, and he has already picked up an IP address. You can see he's got DHCP, the subnet mask, the gateway, and then our DNS servers. So that's perfect. And the only other thing I want to do down here is I want to change his host name to CentOS preview. Perfect. And we don't need to configure anything else because he's already configured and turned on. So we're going to click done up here in the top left, and now we're going to scroll down to the bottom right, and we're going to click begin installation. Now the installation is going to start, but there's a couple things that it wants us to do ahead of time. it wants us to create a root password. Now I'm going to go ahead and set a root password on here. And what it's going to do is it's going to screw up. And what it's going to do, because my root password is not as, it's considered weak by their standards right now, and because this is for testing purposes and this demonstration, then I don't really care what the password is. But I'm going to have to click done twice because my password is considered weak. If my password was not considered weak, then it would just work. I would just click done and move on. But because my password is considered weak, I have to click done, and then I have to click done again. Now my root password's set, and you can see the operating system is still installing down here. And now I could go in if I wanted to and create a new user. For this demo purpose, I don't want to. You would, under your normal circumstances, because you don't want to be logging in as root. And with that being said, let me go ahead and just do this. I'm just going to go ahead and create me a new user. And we'll just be Mike. And we're going to make Mike an administrator, because we don't want to be logging in with root all the time. For testing purposes, it's okay, but for real life scenarios, we don't want to be. So now I'm going to give Mike a password, and this one's also going to be considered weak. What a shock. And we can look at advanced options and see if there's anything we want to change. In this case, there's nothing that I want to change. I just want to take a peek at what's there. So we're going to go ahead and click Save Changes, and then up in the top left, we're going to click Done. And then we're going to click done again because I have a weak password. So now you can see that we have a root password set and a user created. And the only thing left for us to do is to wait for the installation to finish. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video, and I'll see you when it's done. Now the installation is complete. We see here at the bottom that it's asking us to make sure that we've read the end user license agreement, which is a pretty standard agreement, but once we're done, all we really need to do is click reboot. And our virtual machine is going to now reboot, and it's going to come up in our new CentOS minimal environment. Now, if some of you have used Ubuntu or Fedora, you'll probably expect a GUI. Well, the CentOS minimal environment, which is why I like it so much, does not give you that GUI interface. It is strictly a command line interface, and that's all you get. Everything you do has to be through the command line. But don't let that stop you. The fact of this being a minimal interface means a couple of things. It takes much less resources to work and run efficiently. You don't have to load all those GUI interfaces and all of those different applications in order to run the server. The server just runs as it should. The second thing is, by having a minimal interface and not having a whole lot of additional applications installed, your attack surface for this server is going to be much less. And that is key. You really want your attack surface to be as small as possible, because we're going to be setting the server up as a web server, so we may be allowing people from the public internet to come in and touch this server. If we're going to be doing that, especially in a production type environment, you want to make sure that your attack surface, along with having a good firewall, is as small as possible, because you don't want to give attackers any ammunition to be able to attack your server. So now let's wait for this thing to boot up, and we'll take a look at it. So here we are back at the new CentOS preview login. So the server's just rebooted, and we're now sitting here at the login. So I'm actually going to go ahead and log in as myself, my user, not the root user. And should let me in. Bingo. Now one thing you'll notice if you use Linux, you'll probably notice ifconfig. That's not installed here. But we should have internet connection, so we should be able to do a sudo yum update. And that's one of the first things we want to do now that we've installed this, is we want to do an update because we want to download all the patches and stuff that are needed. So now it's asking for the sudo password for Mike. And we're going to do this because Mike is an administrator on here, and we're not logged in as root. If we were logged in as root, we wouldn't have to do sudo. But in this case, we have to do sudo. So now it's going to start checking. It's going to check mirrors. And it's going to scroll on down. There we go. It's going to check for what I need, and it's going to tell me how much I need to download and install for this, and it's probably at that, but I need to scroll. There we go. So total 195 meg. Do I want to do this? Absolutely, I want to do this. So yes, and it's going to go ahead and start downloading all of my RPMs that are needed to install on this system. So I'm just going to go ahead and let this run, and I will get right back with you once it's done. Okay, so our update has finally finished. We've downloaded quite a bit, but it's good because we're now at the newest version in terms of updates to what we want, so security patches of stuff we have installed. Now, the only thing left that I want to do is I really do like the ifconfig tools. Now, with this minimal version, what we can use is a command called ipaddr. And that's going to give us the IP address of the interface. It's going to show us the interfaces that we have, and you can see that we have our loopback address. It's not showing my mouse, obviously, but we have our loopback address, and then we have our Ethernet 0 address, which is what we're actually connected out to the internet to. So I want to install ifconfig just because I'm more familiar with it and I like it, and it's not that big of a deal for an install. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a we're going to do sudo yum install, and we're going to install net-tools. It's going to ask me for my password, and it's going to look it up, it's going to find it, and it's going to say, hey, do you really want to install this? This is going to install 917K. I think I can handle that with this 50 gig drive I gave this guy. So we're going to go ahead and download the package. And if you're not familiar with this, this looks very similar to that. And you can see it's installed. And now I can do ifconfig, and boom, we're getting our ifconfig information. So in the next upcoming videos, what I'm going to show you is we're going to install Apache on this guy to make him a just straight HTML CSS web server. We're then going to install PHP so that he can interpret PHP code on the server side. And then we're going to install a MySQL database. And this is kind of the suite of tools that you get when you, say, purchase web hosting from another company. It's actually called, in this case, it's called the LAMP stack, LAMP, which stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So I hope to see you guys in the next video. I hope this was informative for you, and thanks for watching.